The Grand Hall on Veltara Prime was massive. 7 different species sat in a circle, each representing ancient civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Their technology was advanced. Their wisdom was supposed to be unmatched. Today they gathered to discuss a problem that had been growing for 300 years. That problem was humanity. High Chancellor Vexthor stood at the center of the chamber. His insect-like body clicked and chittered as he moved. Forearms gestured dramatically while he spoke to the assembled council members. His compound eyes reflected the holographic displays floating around him, showing maps of contested space territories. "The humans have gone too far," Vexthor announced. His voice came through a translator, making it sound smooth despite his alien vocal organs. "They now occupy 47 worlds in the outer reaches. These are disputed territories." They were warned. They did not listen. Around the circle, other council members nodded their various heads. Some had scales. Some had fur. One was purely energy contained in a crystalline form. But they all agreed on one thing. Humans were becoming too bold, too aggressive, and too unpredictable. In the human section of the gallery, Ambassador Hyunwoo sat quietly. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple, dark suit, nothing like the elaborate robes and armor of the other species. Next to him sat 2 military advisors, but they remained silent. Hyunwoo had told them to let him handle this. He had been a diplomat for 30 years. He knew how these meetings worked. "The humans breed too quickly," said another council member, a reptilian creature named Sornak. "When we granted them membership 300 years ago, they had populations on 12 worlds. Now they claim 83. They consume resources at an alarming rate. They expand without asking permission." Hyunwoo raised his hand calmly. The gesture was noticed, but Vexthor ignored it for now. The Chancellor wanted to finish his speech first. "We represent civilizations that have maintained peace for 5,000 years, Vexthor continued. "We have rules. We have protocols. We have boundaries that must not be crossed. The humans disregard all of this. They act as if the galaxy belongs to them alone. This cannot continue." Finally, Vexthor acknowledged Hyunwoo with a wave of one of his 4 hands. "The human may speak." Hyunwoo stood slowly. He walked to the center platform with measured steps. He did not rush. He did not show anger or fear. When he spoke, his voice was steady and clear. "Those 47 colonies you mentioned contain 12 million human civilians. They are families, children, workers, scientists, people who have built homes and lives on those worlds. You ask us to abandon them. We cannot do that. We will not do that. They should not have gone there in the first place." Vexthor replied sharply. "Those territories are disputed. The Krillian Dominion has historical claims to several of those systems. The Veltaran Collective has claims to others. Your people ignored these facts." Hyunwoo nodded slowly. "Historical claims from species that have not visited those worlds in over 2,000 years. Meanwhile, our people have transformed barren rocks into living, breathing communities. We have irrigated deserts. We have built cities. We have created something real and tangible." "That does not give you the right," Sornak hissed. "Might does not make right, human." "We agree completely," Hyunwoo said. "Which is why we are not trying to take anything from you. We are simply living on worlds you abandoned or never used. There is room in this galaxy for all of us." War Master Grelthas stood up then. He was a massive being, over 3 meters tall, covered in thick armor-like skin. His species had been warriors for millions of years. They prided themselves on military discipline and honor. When he spoke, everyone listened. "The issue is not just territory," Grelthas said. "The issue is that humans cannot be predicted. Your military does not follow standard protocols. Your ships move in chaotic patterns. Your soldiers do not follow the civilized rules of engagement that all other species have agreed to follow. You are dangerous because you are unpredictable." Hyunwoo met the War Master's eyes without flinching. "Perhaps what you call unpredictable we call adaptive. Perhaps what you call chaotic we call creative. We have different methods, yes. But we have never attacked any of you. We have defended ourselves when necessary, but we have never been the aggressors. That may change," Vexthor said coldly. "Which is why we must act now before the human problem grows larger. We are offering you a choice, Ambassador. Withdraw from all 47 contested worlds within 30 standard cycles. Relocate your civilians to your recognized territories. Do this peacefully and we can avoid conflict." "And if we refuse?" Hyunwoo asked, though he already knew the answer. Then the combined forces of the Galactic Council will remove you by force, Vexthor stated. We have assembled a coalition fleet, 2,000 warships from 7 species, more than enough to enforce the will of this council. The chamber fell silent. Every species present watched the human ambassador carefully. They expected anger. They expected threats. They expected the typical human emotional response. Instead, Hyunwoo simply smiled sadly. You are making a terrible mistake. Is that a threat? Sornak demanded. No, Hyunwoo replied quietly. It is a warning. You think you know us because we have been peaceful members of this council for 3 centuries. You think you understand us because you have studied our history and our culture. But you have never seen what happens when humans are truly threatened. You have never seen what we become when we fight for our homes and families. We have seen your military exercises, Grelthas said dismissively. Your technology is adequate but not exceptional. Your numbers are small compared to our combined forces. You have 400 warships. We have 2,000. The mathematics are simple. Hyunwoo shook his head. War is never about simple mathematics, War Master. But I can see that words will not change your minds today. Very well. I will deliver your ultimatum to my government, but I already know what their answer will be. And what is that? Vexthor asked. Earth does not abandon her children, Hyunwoo said firmly. Not for threats. Not for ultimatums. Not for anything. If you force us to choose between surrender and war, we will choose war every single time. That is what it means to be human. The ambassador turned and walked back to his seat. He gathered his things while the council members whispered among themselves. They seemed almost amused by his defiance. They saw it as the bluster of a weaker species trying to appear strong. Vexthor called for a vote. It was unanimous. The council gave humanity 30 days to evacuate the disputed territories. After that, military action would begin. As Hyunwoo left the chamber, he activated his communicator. The encrypted signal traveled instantly across hundreds of light years to Earth, to the military command center in Geneva. To Fleet Admiral Jae-hyun, who had been expecting this call, Ambassador Hyunwoo to command, he said quietly. The council has chosen war. 30 days until they move. Admiral, prepare our forces, and may whatever gods are listening have mercy on them all, because we will not. On Earth in the command center, Admiral Jae-hyun listened to the message. He was an old man now, but his eyes were still sharp. He had fought in the border skirmishes 40 years ago. He knew what humans were capable of when pushed too far. He turned to his staff officers. Commander Taemin stood at attention waiting for orders. Captain Ji-won was already pulling up tactical displays analyzing potential battle scenarios. They had been preparing for this possibility for months. Activate Protocol Sentinel, the Admiral ordered. Full fleet mobilization. Recall all ships to defensive positions. Fortify every colony world, and send a message to all human vessels in the outer reaches. Tell them to evacuate civilians to hardened positions. The Council thinks they know what they are starting. They have no idea. Across human space, alarms began to sound. Millions of people who had lived in peace suddenly prepared for war. Not because they wanted it, but because someone else had decided that human lives were expendable, that human homes could be taken, that humanity would simply surrender when faced with superior numbers. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. They were about to discover why, throughout human history, anyone who had ever tried to conquer humanity had eventually failed. They were about to understand why humans did not fight like other species, because humans did not fight for territory or resources or honor. Humans fought for each other, for family, for home, and when humans fought for those things, they did not stop until they won, or until there was nothing left. The countdown had begun. 30 days until the galaxy learned a lesson it would never forget. The alien fleet arrived at the Arcturus frontier exactly 30 days after the ultimatum expired. 2,000 warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed under the light of distant stars. Each ship was enormous, dwarfing most human vessels. They moved with precision, maintaining exact distances from each other, following protocols that had been refined over thousands of years of warfare. Lord Commander Thelzar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominance. He was a Krillian, like High Chancellor Vexthor, with 4 arms and compound eyes that could process multiple data streams simultaneously. He watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Status report, he commanded. All vessels in position, Lord Commander. His tactical officer replied, "We have detected the human defense fleet. Approximately 400 ships. They are scattered across 7 systems. Their formation is irregular." Thelzar clicked his mandibles in what passed for a smile among his species. Irregular? Of course it is. Humans have no sense of proper military discipline. Begin the assault. Target the primary colony world first. Arcturus VII. We will make an example of it. 15 light-years away, Commander Taemin stood on the bridge of the human battleship Indomitable. He was a veteran of many conflicts, though none on this scale. His face was weathered and scarred from a plasma burn he had received during the border skirmishes. He watched the same tactical display that Thelzar was watching, but he saw something very different. "They are moving in perfect formation," Captain Jiwan observed. She stood next to him, studying the alien fleet movements. "Just like the simulations predicted. They follow their doctrine exactly." "Good," Taemin said quietly. "That makes them predictable. Order all ships to execute Pattern Omega, and tell Lieutenant Sung Ho that his squadron is cleared for engagement. Time to show them what chaos really looks like." Lieutenant Sung Ho sat in the cockpit of his fighter, one of 50 in his squadron. These were not ordinary fighters. They were experimental craft, faster and more maneuverable than anything the aliens had seen before. They had been developed specifically for this kind of battle. Sung Ho was young, barely 25, but he had the reflexes and instincts of a natural pilot. "All wings check in," he said over the comm system. 49 voices responded in quick succession. They were ready. "Remember the plan," Sung Ho continued. "We do not engage their fighters. We go straight for the command ships. Ignore everything else. Hit them where it hurts and get out." Good hunting. The fighters launched from their carriers and accelerated to attack speed. They did not move in formation. They scattered in all directions, each pilot choosing their own path through the battlefield. To the aliens watching, it looked like complete disorder. It looked like panic. Thelzar saw the human fighters approaching on his display. "Dispatch our fighter screen. Destroy them." The alien fighters moved to intercept. They flew in perfect wings of 12, maintaining textbook spacing and coverage. They were confident. They outnumbered the human fighters 3-1, but the humans did not engage them. Instead, the human fighters weaved between the alien formations, using their superior speed and agility to avoid contact. They were not running away. They were simply refusing to fight on the aliens' terms. Sung Ho locked onto his target, a Krillian command cruiser bristling with weapons and shields. He could see the alien fighters chasing him, but they could not catch him. He armed his missiles, special weapons designed to overwhelm shields with electromagnetic pulses. He fired 4 in rapid succession, then banked hard and accelerated away. The missiles struck the command cruiser's bridge. The shields absorbed the first 2, weakened against the third, and failed against the fourth. The bridge erupted in fire and atmosphere vented into space. The cruiser did not explode, but it went dark and began to drift. Across the battlefield, 49 other fighters were doing the same thing. They targeted command ships, communication relays, and sensor arrays. They did not try to destroy the alien fleet. They tried to blind it and confuse it. Thelzar watched in growing frustration as his command network began to fail. Ships were losing contact with each other. Formation integrity was breaking down. This was not how battles were supposed to be fought. This was not civilized warfare. "All ships maintain formation," he ordered. But his orders were not getting through to half his fleet. The communication jamming from the human attacks was more effective than he had anticipated. Then the human capital ships struck. They did not attack the alien formation head-on, which would have been suicide. Instead, they split into small groups of 3 or 4 ships. These groups attacked from multiple directions simultaneously, concentrating fire on isolated alien vessels before breaking away and repositioning. Captain Myung-soo commanded one of these groups. His ship, the Shadowblade, was a stealth frigate. It had been designed for exactly this kind of combat. He brought his vessel in close to a Veltaran destroyer, closer than any sensible captain would dare, and fired at point-blank range. The destroyer's shields were designed to stop attacks from a distance. They were nearly useless against weapons fired from only 200 meters away. The destroyer broke apart. Myung-soo was already accelerating away before the debris field finished expanding. His ship vanished from alien sensors again, cloaked and silent. On Arcturus VII, the colony world that was supposed to be the first target, Dr. Bora worked frantically in the science station. She was the chief engineer, and she had spent the last 30 days preparing for this moment. The colony had no military defenses. It had no warships or orbital platforms, but it had mining equipment, industrial machinery, and one very creative engineer. "How long until the bombardment starts?" she asked her assistant. "The alien fleet will be in bombardment range in 40 minutes, came the reply. "Most of the civilians have been evacuated to the underground shelters. But if they start dropping kinetic weapons, nothing will survive on the surface. Then we need to make sure they do not get that chance," Bora said. She activated the systems she had been building. Across the planet's surface, mining lasers that normally cut through rock were repositioned to face the sky. Magnetic accelerators that launched ore into orbit were retargeted. Even the colony's small fusion reactors were rigged to overload on command, turning them into massive bombs if enemy troops tried to land. The alien fleet approached. Thelzar had regrouped what remained of his command structure. He had lost 37 ships to the human attacks, far more than he had expected, but he still had overwhelming numerical superiority. He would crush this colony and teach the humans a lesson about defying the Galactic Council. "Begin bombardment," he ordered. The first wave of missiles launched toward the planet, but before they reached the surface, they encountered something unexpected. Beams of coherent light, mining lasers operating far beyond their normal safety parameters, began shooting down the incoming missiles. The lasers were not designed for combat. They were not very accurate. But there were hundreds of them, and they filled the space around the planet with deadly energy. 70% of the first missile wave was destroyed. The rest impacted the surface, but they hit empty buildings and abandoned structures. The civilians were safe underground. Thelzar stared at his display in disbelief. "They weaponized mining equipment? Who does that?" "Humans, apparently," his tactical officer replied. The battle continued for 6 more hours. The human fleet fought with a desperation and creativity that the aliens had never encountered. They used every trick, every unconventional tactic, every advantage they could find. When ammunition ran low, damaged ships rammed alien vessels instead of retreating. When shields failed, captains maneuvered their ships to use asteroids and debris as cover. In the end, the aliens won. They had more ships, more weapons, and more resources. The human fleet was forced to retreat, but they retreated in good order, taking their damaged vessels with them. They had bought enough time to evacuate 90% of the civilian population from Arcturus VII. Thelzar looked at the casualty reports and felt something he had never felt before in his long military career. Fear. He had won the battle, but he had lost over 800 ships, nearly 40% of his fleet. The humans had lost less than 200 vessels, and they had achieved their objective of protecting their civilians. He opened a communication channel to the Galactic Council. High Chancellor Vexthor appeared on the screen, his compound eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Report, Lord Commander. Have the humans surrendered?" "No, Chancellor," Thelzar said slowly. "They have not surrendered. They evacuated their people and retreated. We captured the colony, but it is empty. They destroyed everything useful before leaving. And Chancellor, we suffered heavy casualties, much heavier than projected." "How heavy?" Vexthor demanded. 40%, Chancellor." There was a long silence. Finally, Vexthor spoke again, his voice cold. "You have 2,000 ships remaining, Lord Commander. Continue the campaign. Break their will. Make them understand that resistance is futile." The communication ended. Thelzar looked at his tactical display, at the vast emptiness where the human fleet had disappeared to regroup and resupply. He thought about the way they had fought. Not with honor or following any rules he understood, but with pure determination and endless adaptation. For the first time in his life, Thelzar wondered if the Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake. 6 months had passed since the first battle at Arcturus. The war had spread across dozens of star systems like a disease that neither side could cure. On paper, the aliens were winning. They had won every major battle. They had captured 15 colony worlds. Their fleet still outnumbered the humans by more than 2 to 1. But something was wrong. Something that War Master Grelthus could not quite explain to the Galactic Council. He stood in the council chamber on Veltara Prime, presenting his latest report. The holographic display showed maps of conquered territories marked in green. It should have been a victory presentation. Instead, it felt like a confession of failure. We have achieved all strategic objectives, Grelthas began. Human colonies have been captured. Their fleet has been pushed back toward their core worlds. By every military metric, we are succeeding. Then why do you look troubled, War Master? Vexthor asked. The Chancellor's voice carried an edge of impatience. This war was supposed to have been over months ago. Because the humans will not break, Grelthas said quietly. We have won 15 major engagements. We have destroyed over 600 of their warships. We have captured their colonies and killed thousands of their soldiers. But they do not surrender. They do not even slow down. If anything, they fight harder with each passing day. Sornak, the Reptilian Council member, hissed in frustration. Then we must increase the pressure. Destroy more of their ships. Make them understand the futility of resistance. You do not understand, Grelthas said, and there was something in his voice that made everyone pay attention. Fear. They already know they cannot win through conventional warfare. That is why they stopped trying to fight conventionally. They have changed the nature of this war into something we have never faced before. On the human colony world of New Busan, Colonel Hei-Wan led her Marines through the ruins of what had once been the capital city. The aliens had bombarded it from orbit 3 weeks ago. They had sent ground troops to occupy it 2 weeks ago. Those troops were still here, but they were not occupying anything anymore. They were just trying to survive. Hei-Wan was a veteran of 20 years of service. She was tough, practical, and absolutely ruthless when she needed to be. Right now she needed to be. Her Marines moved through the rubble like ghosts, using every piece of broken building and burned-out vehicle as cover. They did not wear bright uniforms. They wore whatever helped them blend into the environment. Some had painted their armor with ash and dirt. Others had attached pieces of debris to their gear as camouflage. Contact, whispered one of her soldiers over the comm. Enemy patrol 3 blocks north. 12 hostiles. Let them pass, Hei-Wan ordered. We are not here for patrols. We are here for their command post. The alien patrol walked past their position, completely unaware that 40 human Marines were hiding less than 50 meters away. The aliens were looking for enemies. But they expected those enemies to be in uniform, standing and fighting. They did not expect them to be buried in rubble, patient and silent as death. 3 hours later, Hei-Wan's team reached the alien command post. It was a fortified building in the city center, surrounded by guards and defensive weapons. A frontal assault would have been suicide. So Hei-Wan did not assault it frontally. She and her team had spent the last week mapping the city's underground infrastructure, sewers, maintenance tunnels, old subway lines. Every city had them, and the aliens never thought to guard them properly. The Marines emerged from a drainage pipe directly beneath the command post. They placed explosive charges on the support columns, set the timers, and disappeared back underground. 10 minutes later, the entire building collapsed. The alien commanding officer and his entire staff died in seconds. The alien forces in the city suddenly had no leadership, no coordination, no orders. Hei-Wan did not stay to watch. She and her team were already 3 kilometers away, planning their next strike. This was how humans fought now. Not in pitched battles where numbers mattered, but in shadows and ruins where creativity and determination meant everything. Private Minseo was only 19 years old. She had joined the military just 8 months ago, 2 months before the war started. Now she was part of a unit that had been holding a mountain pass on the colony world of New Jeju for 11 days. The aliens had tried to break through 6 times. 6 times they had been pushed back. The pass was strategically vital. If the aliens took it, they would have a clear route to the evacuation centers where thousands of civilians were waiting for transport off-world. Minseo and her unit of 50 soldiers were all that stood between those civilians and the alien army. Here they come again, her sergeant said calmly. He was an older man, maybe 40, with gray in his hair and steady hands. 7th time is the charm, I guess. Everyone to positions. Minseo checked her rifle and took her place behind the makeshift barricade. They had built it from pieces of destroyed vehicles, rocks, and anything else they could find. It would not stop a direct hit from a tank, but it gave them some cover. That was all they needed. The alien force approaching was massive. Armored vehicles, infantry, air support. Hundreds of soldiers against 50 defenders. The odds were impossible. But Minseo had learned something over the past 11 days. Odds did not matter as much as people thought. The battle began with an alien artillery barrage. Explosions tore through the pass, sending rock and dirt flying in all directions. Minseo kept her head down and waited. This was the easy part. When the barrage stopped, the real fight would begin. And it did. Alien infantry advanced up the pass, using their vehicles as cover. Human soldiers opened fire, picking their targets carefully. Every shot had to count because ammunition was running low. Minzio fired in controlled bursts, just like she had been trained. She did not think about the beings she was shooting at. She thought about the children in the evacuation centers. She thought about the elderly people waiting for rescue. She thought about her duty. The aliens reached the barricade. Hand-to-hand fighting erupted. Minzio used her rifle butt to strike an alien soldier, then switched to her sidearm at close range. Around her, other soldiers were doing the same. They fought with weapons, with tools, with their bare hands when necessary. They fought because giving up meant death for thousands of innocent people. After 2 hours, the aliens retreated again. Minzio collapsed behind the barricade, breathing hard. Her sergeant did a head count. They had started with 50 soldiers 11 days ago. Now they had 23. But the pass was still held. The civilians were still safe. Good work, the sergeant said. Rest while you can. They will be back. In orbit above New Jeju, Commander Wu Jin directed his carrier group with precise efficiency. His ship, the Relentless, was an experimental design that had only been completed 3 months before the war started. It carried twice as many fighters as a standard carrier, but had lighter armor and weapons. The aliens thought carriers were support vessels that stayed far from battle. Wu Jin had been proving them wrong for 6 months. Enemy battle group approaching, his tactical officer reported. 8 cruisers, 20 frigates, fighter screen. Launch all fighters, Wu Jin ordered, and bring us around to attack heading. We are going straight at them. Sir, they outnumber us significantly, the tactical officer said carefully. I know, Wu Jin replied with a thin smile. That is why they will not expect us to attack. They think we will run, so we will do the opposite. The Relentless accelerated toward the alien fleet. Fighters poured from its launch bays like angry wasps from a disturbed nest. The aliens hesitated, confused by the unexpected aggression. That hesitation cost them. Human fighters tore into their formation before they could react properly. The Relentless itself fired missiles at close range, overwhelming the shields of an alien cruiser before banking away. This was how Wu Jin fought. Fast, aggressive, unpredictable. He never did what the tactical manuals said he should do. He did what worked. In a secret research facility on Earth, Chief Scientist De-Yoon studied the latest battle reports with intense focus. She was not a soldier. She was an engineer and physicist. But she understood that this war would not be won just with bravery. It would be won with innovation. Her team had been working around the clock for months, developing new weapons and defensive systems. They had turned civilian technology into military applications. Cargo haulers had been modified to carry massive bombs. Mining lasers had been weaponized. Even agricultural satellites had been repurposed as kinetic bombardment platforms. We need more, Daun said to her team. The fleet needs weapons that the aliens have never seen before. We need to surprise them. One of her assistants brought up a new design. What about this? We take their own missiles, the ones that failed to detonate, and we reverse engineer the warheads. Then we use them against their own shields, Daun smiled. Perfect. Begin production immediately. At Military Intelligence Headquarters, Officer Dong Hyun stared at his computer screens. He had been working on breaking alien encryption for 5 months. It had been incredibly difficult. Alien mathematics worked differently than human mathematics. Their computer systems used different logic structures. But Dong Hyun was patient and brilliant, and 2 days ago he had finally succeeded. Now he could read their communications. He could see their fleet movements before they happened. He could identify which commanders were cautious and which were aggressive. He could find their supply routes, their weak points, their fears. He sent his latest intelligence report to Fleet Admiral Jae Hyun. It contained the projected location of the next major alien offensive. With this information, the humans could set a trap. They could turn another alien victory into a costly stalemate. Back in the council chambers on Velterra Prime, War Master Grelthus finished his report. The council members sat in uncomfortable silence. They had expected a quick war. They had expected human surrender. They had gotten neither. What are our casualties? Vexthor asked finally. Total? Grelthus replied. We have lost over 1,500 ships. The humans have lost approximately 700. But here's what troubles me most. Our ship production cannot keep pace with our losses. The humans somehow are building ships faster than we are destroying them. They are also developing new weapons and tactics every week. They adapt faster than any species I have ever encountered. This is unacceptable, Sornak hissed. We have superior technology. We have superior numbers. How are we not winning decisively? Grelthus looked at the assembled council with something close to pity. Because humans do not fight the way we do. They do not care about honor or proper military doctrine. They care about winning, and they will do anything, use anything, sacrifice anything to achieve victory. Every building becomes a fortress. Every civilian becomes a soldier. Every piece of equipment becomes a weapon. We are not fighting a military. We are fighting an entire species that has decided it will not be conquered. The silence that followed was heavy with realization. The war was not going as planned, and no one knew how to fix it. The alien armada that entered the Sol system was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. 5,000 warships from 7 different species, all working together with a single purpose: to break humanity once and for all by destroying their homeworld. High Chancellor Vexthor himself commanded the fleet from his flagship, determined to end this war that had dragged on for far too long. Earth hung in the darkness of space like a blue and white jewel. From orbit it looked peaceful, beautiful, defenseless. Vexthor studied the planet on his main display and felt satisfaction. The humans had gathered their remaining fleet here for a final stand. Only 800 ships defended the entire system. The mathematics were simple: 5,000 against 800. The outcome was inevitable. Begin the assault, Vexthor commanded. Sweep aside their outer defenses and advance to bombardment range. This ends today. The alien fleet moved forward in perfect formation, just as they had done in every battle before. They expected the humans to scatter and fight in their usual chaotic manner. They expected unconventional tactics and desperate maneuvers. They were prepared for anything the humans might try. Or so they thought. Admiral Jae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now serving as the flagship of Earth's defense. He was an old man, and he looked even older after 14 months of constant warfare. But his eyes were clear and his voice was steady when he gave his orders. Captain Ji-won, is everything in position? Ji-won checked her tactical display one final time. She had been promoted to second in command of the entire defense fleet after her brilliant work in dozens of battles. Now she was helping to coordinate the defense of humanity's birthplace. All assets are ready, Admiral. The moon batteries are charged. The orbital platforms are armed. Every satellite in the system has been weaponized. We are as ready as we will ever be. Then let us show them what it means to attack Earth, Jae-hyun said quietly. Execute Operation Fortress. The alien fleet reached the Kuiper Belt, the outer edge of the Sol system. This was where humanity's deep space stations orbited, far from the inner planets. The aliens expected minimal resistance here. These stations were civilian facilities, after all. Mining operations and research posts. Nothing military. The first station they encountered exploded without warning, not because it was destroyed, but because the humans had rigged it with every explosive they could find and detonated it deliberately. The blast caught 3 alien cruisers that had moved too close, destroying one and crippling the other 2. Before the aliens could react, every other station in the Kuiper Belt did the same thing. Dozens of massive explosions created a field of debris and radiation that disrupted the alien formation. They destroyed their own stations? Vexthor said in disbelief. Confirmed, Chancellor, his sensor officer replied. All outer stations have been deliberately destroyed. They are using them as weapons. It was the first indication that this battle would be different. The humans were not just defending. They were turning every asset, every structure, every piece of technology into a weapon. Even things that would take decades to rebuild were being sacrificed without hesitation. The alien fleet pressed forward, reforming their ranks as they moved deeper into the system. They passed Neptune, then Uranus. Each planet had been fortified. Automated defense platforms opened fire from stable orbits, using the planet's gravity wells as shields. The aliens destroyed these platforms, but it cost them time and ships. Every kilometer toward Earth was paid for in blood. Commander Tae-min led a squadron of destroyers in the space between Jupiter and Saturn. His orders were simple: delay the enemy. Make them pay for every light second of advancement. He did not expect to survive, but he did expect to hurt them badly before he died. All ships pattern Delta, he commanded. We hit them, we run, we hit them again. Do not stay and fight. Do not try to be heroes. Just make them bleed. His ships darted in and out of the asteroid belt using the rocks as cover. They fired from unexpected angles, destroyed alien ships, and vanished before retaliation could arrive. It was exhausting, dangerous work. Taman lost 2 ships in the first hour, but the aliens lost 20. On Earth's moon, Dr. Bora supervised the final preparations of humanity's secret weapon. She had been brought back from the colony specifically for this project. The moon's surface was covered in mining operations that had been active for 2 centuries. Massive railguns that launched ore into space for processing. Bora and her team had spent the last year converting every single one of those railguns into weapons of war. Power levels? She asked her assistant. All batteries at maximum charge. We have enough power for approximately 2 hours of continuous fire. After that, we will need to cycle the reactors. 2 hours will be enough, Bora said. By then, this battle will be decided one way or another. The railguns were hidden across the moon's surface, camouflaged to look like ordinary mining equipment. The aliens had no idea they existed. When they came into range, they would get a very unpleasant surprise. On Earth itself, Kyung-soo coordinated the ground defense preparations. He was not a soldier. He had been a teacher before the war, specializing in history. Now he commanded 500 million civilian volunteers who had armed themselves and prepared to defend their home if the aliens broke through and landed ground troops. Every major city had been fortified. Buildings had been reinforced. Underground shelters had been stocked with supplies. Weapons had been distributed to anyone who wanted one, and almost everyone did. Children and elderly were evacuated to secure locations, but everyone else stayed. They would not run. This was Earth, this was home. If the aliens wanted it, they would have to take it from the cold, dead hands of every human being on the planet. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood in the communications center in Geneva, preparing to broadcast a message to the entire world. The aliens were hours away from Earth orbit. The final battle was about to begin. He wanted every human to know what was at stake and what they were fighting for. People of Earth, he began, his voice calm despite the circumstances. The enemy is at our doorstep. They come with overwhelming numbers. They believe they can force us to surrender by threatening our homeworld. They are wrong. We have never surrendered. Not in our entire history. Not when we faced extinction from disease, famine, or war. Not when we faced dangers from our own planet. And we will not surrender now to aliens who think they can take from us what is ours. Today we show them who we are. Today we show them what humans become when you threaten everything we love. Stand strong, fight hard, and know that whatever happens, humanity will endure. We always have. We always will. The alien fleet reached Mars. Only 800 human ships stood between them and Earth now. Vexthor prepared to give the order for the final assault. He expected the humans to make their last stand in orbit around their planet. He expected them to die bravely but futilely. Admiral Jae-hyun had different plans. All ships fall back to the moon. Draw them into the killing zone. The human fleet retreated, moving behind Earth's moon as if seeking its protection. The aliens pursued, confident that victory was minutes away. 5,000 ships advanced on 800. They moved into orbit around Earth's moon, preparing to finish the human fleet and then bombard the planet below. Now, Dr. Bora said simply. The moon's surface erupted with fire. Hundreds of railguns opened fire simultaneously, launching projectiles at relativistic speeds. The aliens had been expecting missiles and energy weapons. They were not prepared for simple chunks of metal, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. Their shields were designed for energy weapons. They were nearly useless against kinetic impactors. The first salvo destroyed 200 alien ships instantly. The second salvo destroyed another 150. The aliens scrambled to respond, but they were in a kill zone with no cover and no escape. The human fleet hiding behind the moon emerged and attacked from the flank. Every satellite in Earth orbit revealed hidden weapons and opened fire. The planet itself became a fortress, with every defensive installation humanity had built over 2 centuries firing at once. Vexthor watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. This was not a battle. This was a slaughter. The humans had turned their entire home system into one massive weapon, and the aliens had flown straight into the trap. Retreat, Vexthor ordered. All ships retreat immediately. But retreating from a kill zone under fire was nearly impossible. The aliens tried to break away, but human ships pursued them relentlessly. Captain Ji-won coordinated the defense with cold efficiency, directing fire to where it would hurt the most. She targeted engines and command centers, crippling ships so they could not escape. The battle raged for 6 hours. In space above Earth, thousands of ships fought and died. Debris rained down on Earth's atmosphere, burning up in brilliant streaks of light. From the ground, it looked like the sky was on fire. Kyung-soo and his volunteers watched from fortified positions, ready to fight if any aliens made it to the surface. But none did. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Earth. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The species that had started this war were now experiencing something they had not felt in thousands of years. Fear. Real, genuine fear of another species. Fear of humanity. Commander Tae-min stood on the bridge of his ship as it entered orbit around a Krillian colony world. This planet had been far from the front lines when the war started. Its people had thought themselves safe from any conflict. They were learning how wrong they had been. Below, cities built by insectoid beings over centuries gleamed in the light of their star. Those cities were untouched by war. Tae-min intended to keep it that way. But the Krillians did not know that yet. "Open a channel to the planetary government," he ordered. A Krillian official appeared on the screen, 4 arms, gesturing nervously. His compound eyes reflected fear and confusion. "Human commander, please. This is a civilian world. We have no military installations. We have no weapons. We surrender. Please do not destroy our cities." Tae-min studied the alien for a moment before speaking. "We are not here to destroy your cities. We are here to destroy your military shipyards in orbit and your command center. Evacuate those facilities within the next hour. Anyone remaining after that will be considered a combatant. Your civilians will not be harmed if you cooperate." The Krillian official seemed shocked. "You are giving us time to evacuate? You are not going to bombard the planet?" "We are not like you," Tae-min said coldly. "We do not make war on civilians unless we have no choice. 1 hour, do not waste it, the channel closed." Tae-min turned to his crew. "Prepare targeted strikes only. If any civilian structure is hit by accident, there will be consequences. We win this war by being better than them, not by becoming like them." Across 15 different star systems, similar scenes were playing out. Human fleets had penetrated deep into alien territory, capturing or destroying military targets while carefully avoiding civilian casualties. It was a strategy that confused and terrified the aliens in equal measure. They had expected revenge. They had expected humanity to do to them what they had tried to do to Earth. Instead, they got something far more unsettling. Mercy combined with overwhelming military efficiency. Lieutenant Sung-ho had become one of the most decorated pilots in the human fleet. His squadron had destroyed over 100 alien warships throughout the war. Now he led special operations deep behind enemy lines. His current mission was to infiltrate a heavily defended military base and destroy their central communications hub. It was exactly the kind of impossible task that Sung-ho had become famous for accomplishing. His team of 12 infiltrators approached the base in a captured alien shuttle. They had stolen it 3 weeks ago and modified its identification codes. As far as alien sensors could tell, they were a legitimate supply transport. The deception worked. They landed inside the base without raising any alarms. "Remember," Sung-ho told his team as they prepared to disembark, "we are here for the communications hub only. We do not engage unless necessary. We do not take unnecessary risks. Get in, plant the charges, get out." Simple and clean. The mission went exactly as planned. The team moved through the base using stolen uniforms and forged access codes. They placed explosives on the communications equipment, set the timers, and returned to their shuttle. They were lifting off when the charges detonated, destroying the hub and blinding the alien military command in this entire sector. By the time the aliens realized what had happened, Sung-ho and his team were already safely back in human-controlled space. On Veltara Prime, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. The chamber that had once been filled with confident pronouncements about crushing human resistance was now filled with panic and recrimination. War Master Grelthus stood before them, the sole surviving member of the original military leadership. Everyone else had died in the Battle of Earth or in the subsequent human offensive. "How many worlds have we lost?" Sornak demanded. The reptilian's voice cracked with stress. 15 worlds have been captured or blockaded by human forces, Grelthus reported. Another 23 have declared neutrality and refused to continue supporting the war effort. "Our coalition is collapsing," Species that were our allies 3 months ago are now negotiating separate peace treaties with the humans. A council member from the Velteron Collective spoke up, its crystalline form pulsing with agitation. The humans could have destroyed those 15 worlds. They have the firepower, but they chose not to. Why? What are they planning? Grelthus had been asking himself the same question. I believe they are sending a message. They want us to know that they could be as brutal as we were, but they choose not to be. It makes them look civilized and us look like monsters. And it is working. Public opinion across the galaxy has turned against us. This is unacceptable, another council member said. We must negotiate. We must end this war before we lose everything. The humans have already offered terms, Grelthus said quietly. Ambassador Hyunwoo has been waiting in the diplomatic annex for 2 days. He wants to address this council. I recommend we allow him to speak. There was silence. Finally, the acting chancellor, a being that had replaced Vexthor after his death, nodded. Bring the human ambassador. Ambassador Hyunwoo entered the chamber with the same calm dignity he had shown 14 months ago, when this council had declared war. He walked to the center platform and looked at each council member in turn. When he spoke, his voice carried no anger or triumph, just simple facts. 14 months ago, you gave humanity an ultimatum. Abandon our colonies or face war. We chose to defend our people. You thought we would break easily. You were wrong. Now Earth has spoken, and I am here to deliver our terms. You mean your demands for our surrender? Sornak hissed bitterly. No, Hyunwoo said. I mean our terms for peace. There is a difference. If we wanted your surrender, your homeworlds would already be under occupation. We have the military capability. We have proven that. But we do not want to conquer you. We never did. We simply wanted to be left alone to live our lives in peace. He activated a holographic display showing a document. These are the terms. First, all hostilities cease immediately. Second, you will pay reparations for the damage caused to human colonies and for the 200 million civilians killed during your attack on Earth. Third, all disputed territories in the outer reaches are recognized as human sovereign space. Fourth, a demilitarized zone is established between our territories and yours. No military ships within 50 light-years of the border. And fifth, humanity receives a permanent seat on this council with full voting rights, including veto power. Those terms are harsh, the acting chancellor said. They are fair, Hyunwoo replied. You started a war of extermination. We are offering you peace with your sovereignty intact. Your worlds remain yours. Your governments remain in power. We are not occupying your territory or demanding regime change. We are simply ensuring that you can never threaten us again. You should consider this generous given what you tried to do to Earth. Grelthus stepped forward. Ambassador, may I speak frankly? Please do, War Master. I have fought your species for 14 months. I have lost countless ships and soldiers to your forces. I have studied your tactics, your weapons, your methods, and I have come to a conclusion that terrifies me. You have been holding back, have you not? Even now you could push harder. You could do to our worlds what we tried to do to Earth, but you are choosing not to. Why? Hyunwoo met the War Master's gaze steadily. Because we are not you, War Master. We fight when we must. We kill when necessary. But we do not make war on civilians. We do not destroy cities filled with families. We do not genocide entire populations. You see that as weakness. We see it as the difference between civilization and barbarism. It is not weakness, Grelthus said quietly. That is what makes you truly dangerous. Any species can destroy. Only the strongest can show mercy. The council members conferred among themselves for several minutes. Finally, the acting chancellor spoke. We accept your terms, Ambassador. We will sign the treaty and end this war. One more thing, Hyunwoo said. War Master Grelthus, you are required to compile a complete military analysis of this war. Every battle, every tactic, every lesson learned. This document will be distributed to every species in the galaxy. It will be titled as you see fit, but it must be honest about what happened and why. Grelthus nodded slowly. I understand, and I know exactly what I will title it. 2 weeks later, the peace treaty was signed in a formal ceremony. Captain Ji-won attended as part of the human delegation, along with Admiral Jae-hyun and several other senior officers. Counselor Yeren, a human woman who had been appointed as Earth's representative to the council, gave a brief speech. Today marks the end of a war that should never have happened, she said. We did not want this conflict. We did not start it, but we finished it. Let this be a lesson to every species in this galaxy. Humanity does not seek conquest. We do not seek domination. We seek only the right to exist in peace, to raise our children in safety, and to build our futures without fear. But if you threaten that, if you try to take from us what is ours, you will discover what we become. You will learn why humanity has survived every disaster, every enemy, every challenge our own planet ever threw at us. Because we do not give up. We do not surrender, we endure, and that makes us unstoppable. After the ceremony, War Master Grelthus released his military analysis to the galactic networks. The document was thousands of pages long, filled with detailed examinations of every aspect of the war. But everyone who read it remembered the title and the conclusion. The title was simple and direct: Why We Dread Battling Humans at Any Price. The conclusion was even simpler. The humans do not fight for glory or resources or territorial expansion. They fight for survival, for each other, for their homes and families. They adapt instantly to any situation. They turn every disadvantage into an advantage. They refuse to accept defeat no matter how impossible the odds. They show mercy when they can, but ruthlessness when they must. And perhaps most terrifying of all, they learn from every battle and become stronger. We started this war believing we could force them to submit through superior numbers and technology. We ended it grateful that they chose to show us mercy, instead of teaching us what total war truly means. If there is one lesson the galaxy must learn from this conflict, it is this: never threaten humanity's home, never threaten their families, and never assume that because they choose peace they are incapable of war. Because when humans go to war, they do not fight to win battles. They fight to win wars, and they always succeed. Commander Taemin and Captain Jiwan stood together on the observation deck of the Indomitable, watching Earth rotate slowly below them. The planet bore scars from the battle. Entire regions were still being rebuilt, but it was healing. Humanity was resilient like that. Do you think they learned their lesson? Jiwan asked. Taemin was quiet for a moment. I think they learned that humanity is not to be underestimated. I think they learned that we will defend what is ours with everything we have. And I think they learned that mercy from a position of strength is more terrifying than cruelty from a position of weakness. So we will have peace? For now, Taemin said. And maybe forever. Because now they know. Now the whole galaxy knows. You can trade with humans. You can be friends with humans. You can even argue with humans. But you do not make war on humans. Not unless you are prepared to pay a price so terrible that victory becomes meaningless. Jiwan smiled slightly. We should get that printed on a plaque. I think War Master Grelthus already did that for us, Taemin replied. His report will be required reading in every military academy in the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. Every species will study what happened when they tried to force humanity to submit. And every species will remember the lesson. Below them, Earth continued its eternal rotation. Humanity's homeworld. Battered but unbroken. Scarred but still beautiful. A reminder of why humans fought the way they did. Because some things were worth any price to defend. The war was over. Humanity had won. Not through conquest, but through sheer determination and the refusal to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. And the galaxy would never forget.